Hello, everyone, and welcome to
Mhm.
WLBT Plus Weather. I'm here with Chief Meteorologist Dave Roberts, and I'm Meteorologist Ashley Civic. And this is going to be where we dive a little bit more deeper into the forecast, what's going on here, even what's going on in the tropics, and just giving you a better idea of what we're expecting in terms of the weather.
Yep, absolutely. And we're talking about a couple things today, right? We've got the heat. It's back to Mississippi summer. Okay. Where, as I posted on Facebook, we now rejoin Mississippi summer already in progress. What do we mean by that? It's just flat out hot out there.
It's the dog days of summer.
Yeah. And what we're talking about now, another heat advisory in
Yes.
effect. And we get used to these. I mean, how do you know it's July in Mississippi? Because you see a map like this. And we've got the heat advisory out for most of our area, most of the state. And then we've got the excessive heat warning out for areas in red. What's the difference really between the two? It's hot. It's hot.
It's really just down to technicalities, more so when it comes to those peak heat indice values. We are expecting anywhere between 105 and 110 to feel like outside, and those areas that are highlighted in pink, that excessive heat warning, they could reach peak heat indices between 110 and 115 degrees. So no matter what you are under, it is definitely downright hot, and it is very important to heed those warnings and advisories, especially as we head into this upcoming week. Right now, not seeing much, just some puffy cumulus clouds outside. We're taking you to one of our first alert sky cams from the bank of forest out in Forest. Temperatures currently in the low 90s. It's currently 93 in Forest, 93 here in Jackson. It's 91 in Yazoo City and Vicksburg. And we're pretty much going to remain in the low 90s, but it's going to still feel more like the triple digits across much of the area.
Yeah, 94 degrees in Monticello. And it's still not really the peak heat of the day yet. And it's a little different today than the past few days because we're not covered up by rain on the radar, which is something that we've been seeing. I mean, it's been so muggy lately. All right, look, we know, right? It's the end of July. What can we say? We're gonna be complaining about this for at least another month, maybe two. And the other thing that goes on, of course, we got to deal with the tropics. So it's not only hot, but we've got tropical issues as well, which again, we have to come to expect this because we started off the season so robust. I mean, we had so much activity going on. It was a little bit scary for it to be June, May, June, right? And they just all were coming off the screen, it seemed. And then July came around, and tropics took a little summer vacay. And now we're getting into August, third busiest month on average, hurricane season, and here we go.
We're starting to heat back up. For us here at home, at least over the next couple of days, not going to be dealing with tropic activities. It's really going to be the heat that we're dealing with. And unfortunately, it's not going to cool off much overnight. We're still going to see temperatures really only bottom out in the upper 70s. And with that humidity, feeling more like the 80s overnight. So unfortunately, if you have evening activities, maybe if you were trying to go on an evening run or heading out early in the morning, it's still going to be very muggy. So keep that in mind as well. Even if you're trying to dodge the peak heating of the day, it's still going to be rather uncomfortable, quite oppressive at times, even into the evening hours as well.
Yeah, absolutely. We don't see that really changing all that much. Temperatures will drop from the 90s into the 80s overnight, but not much lower than that. Mid upper 70s tomorrow morning. And we're going to be in this soupy mess. How long do you think?
At least for the next 10 days, I would say. We're looking not to see much in terms of relief. We're not expecting much in rain when it comes to rain. So it's definitely going to be feeling like the end of July is heading into August.
And the irony is I'm taking a little vacay, to a place that's actually more tropical than here. And ironically, it will be cooler because that's just the way I roll. But I wanted to do that. So we've got a couple questions coming in on the Book of Faces. If you're watching us on that today, and Ashley's talking about how hot it's going to be.
And Ricardo's asking, is this going to be like the heat wave we saw last year? As of right now, it's not necessarily looking to last as long, but it really all depends on this high pressure system that is really setting up shop just a little further off to the west, out in the southern plains. It'll start to drift a little further towards the southeast, and that's really going to create a heat dome over us. That's why we're going to be experiencing these hot and steamy conditions over the next rather 7 to 10 days.
Yeah. And so get used to the heat, basically. And it's Mississippi. We've come to expect it anyway.
Yes. And so, as Dave mentioned, our temperature is going to be in the mid 90s for quite some time, a couple of degrees above average, not escaping much when it comes to overnight lows. Still going to be in the mid to upper 70s. Feels like temperatures, especially this week, going to be in the triple digits, anywhere between 105 and 110, maybe even up to 115 at times. So, because of that, it's definitely important to make sure you're staying hydrated. I know kids are going back to school later on at the end of this week.
Summer, where's the summer gone? I mean, I can't believe
it's
that.
Flying by. So if you are sending your kids back to school, I definitely would bring an extra water bottle or two,
or three.
Mm-hmm. You can never have too much water. Maybe, hopefully, the schools will definitely keep this heat in mind when it comes to outdoor recess. Maybe just keep it indoors for this week. But temperatures will be in the 90s. You're not going to really need an umbrella to send with your kids to school. We might see a brief pop-up shower under the heating of the day, but most of us going to stay dry for a good majority of this week.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the story when it comes to temperatures. I can't believe, like I said, that school is already going back into session later this week. And the kids here in the South have to deal with such heat and humidity, at least for a month and maybe a little bit into September too. We get our first cool front. I want to call it a dry front. Right. Lower humidity front, whatever you want to call it, usually comes in September. And then the actual cooler weather usually kicks in about the state fair time, end of September, early October.
Definitely going to be looking forward to that. It'll definitely be something to look forward to, especially as we head into the end of September, October. We do got another question from Ricardo. The high pressure is not good for something tropical coming into the Gulf, right?
Well, yes and no. First off, the high pressure is always there in the Atlantic this time of year. It's almost a constant feature. It always depends on how strong the high pressure is and where it's positioned in that area. So that's the thing. Sometimes you're going to have the high over here. You'll have the high over there. Right now, I wouldn't be too concerned about where it's positioned because the system hasn't formed yet. Once we know that the system has formed, okay, then we're going to have a much better handle as to where it's going. And maybe we should transition to that graphic now to talk more about what's going to be going on. First, the checklist. Yes, go ahead.
Quick checklist. Because we are going to still be dealing with the heat. Make sure you're drinking plenty of water. Wear light, loose-fitted clothing. Take breaks in the AC. And, of course, check in on your loved ones and your furry friends because they'll definitely be feeling the heat just as much as we will. Rain chances, as I mentioned, not going to be much. May see some later on this weekend, but it's not looking to be too promising in terms of any widespread shower activity like we saw this past week.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, now we're talking about the tropics because Ricardo and other folks want to know what the story is when it comes to the tropics. So bottom line is we're still watching that area. It's an orange area. It encompasses much of Florida. This means over the next 7 days, the National Hurricane Center gives a 50% odds that something could develop in that zone. There is part of it in the eastern Gulf of Mexico, yes. But if you were to take this as gospel and pretend a system were to go right down the middle, it would really get disrupted by the mountains of Cuba, Haiti, and the Dominican Republic. So at this point, I wouldn't be overly concerned. You're seeing a lot of stuff on Facebook. And right now, this is a great thing for a lot of people that are amateurs or not sure what they're looking at with the forecast models, because I can show you any model you want, and I can scare you if I want. But the bottom line is until that system forms, until it initializes, the forecast track models aren't all that good because there's a lot of them out there and they're really running with about 1 or 2% accuracy when they don't have an actual system track yet. What I do want to point out though is if you look behind where the X is on your screen coming off the coast of Africa, there's another system, area of low pressure, that's going to be coming in, and that could develop into something as well. So we're getting into it, folks. This is where the kickoff, if you will, of the core of hurricane season. What we saw in June and July really wasn't much, but now what we're starting to see is that area of low pressure, again, doesn't look like much because it isn't much. It's not rapidly spinning up, and we don't expect it to rapidly develop either. But as this area lifts more northwestward and gets toward places like San Juan or gets closer to, let's say, Puerto Rico or the Bahamas, then we could be looking at the development of the system, and that could present a tropical issue at that time.
And I also wanted to show you this. This is our moisture tracker. Of course, we look at this when we're talking about humidity back here at home, but this is just one model's interpretation of what may pan out as we head into the next 7 to 10 days. As of right now, it's looking to be tracking more towards the Florida peninsula, and then maybe skirting off a little more along the East Coast. But of course, this is still ways out. This is just one model's interpretation of what could take place.
And I'll say something about this. This is the same scenario that was painted on Thursday and Friday when I was showing it to you then. So we have consistency here, that's for sure. But unfortunately, it's consistency on a system that just hasn't formed yet. So we'll get more confidence on that over the coming days, certainly by Wednesday or Thursday of this week.
Right. And of course, make sure you have that free First Alert weather app. We have the QR code up here on the screen. It's a great tool to have. We're always constantly updating, especially with, we have limited newscasts because of the Olympics on it. But of course, Dave will be here at the 5, 6, and 10 o'clock to update you what's going on. And of course, what's going on with the tropics as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, that's all I have in terms.
Any questions? Let's see.
No more questions.
No more questions. We were so thorough, Ashley, that we left the audience speechless, and we really appreciate that. But we wanted to just take this time out. When we have this kind of time, we want to take this time out, give you a little bit more in-depth look as to what's going on. It also allows us to answer your questions directly, and it gives us maybe some ideas too as to what we should address during our newscasts this evening too, as we get into it, the 5, 6, 9, and 10, and the 5:30, which you're going to be doing this afternoon as well. It's hard to keep track of everybody's schedule here because of the fact that we have some folks on vacation, and it's also the Olympics going on for the next 2 weeks, 2 more weeks of this, disrupting our schedules a little bit. So, but at least their evening shows will be at the right time.
And we'll be having this every day during the week at 10 o'clock with our morning crew, and at 2:30 with myself and Dave, or even Peyton as well. And sometimes Carol will also pop in as well.
Kara's here. She's here.
So
she's the hand.
So that's something to look forward to. If you do have questions, it's a great time to ask us while we're talking about the forecast, as Dave mentioned.
That's right. Until then, folks, we will see you today. WLBT News at 5 and Fox 40 News at 5:30 with Ashley over here. We look forward to seeing you later.